Welcome to the Embodied Wisdom podcast.
Okay, so I got to start here, David. Okay. What put you on this path? Because I know what typically puts someone on this healing path is trauma themselves that they're having to work through. What's your story?
Yeah, it's funny because I was kind of unconscious to the trauma I went through, but there is very much a deciding point in my path that put me on the path. And that was losing my father suddenly at the age of 11. So,
Oh my gosh, David. I lost my father at 11.
whoa, all right. There we go.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that will do it for you because it's such a hard age. We're 12 and a half is when we're coming these three adult hormones are starting to come online that we adopt at age 13. So I don't know about you, but for me, I didn't realize or understand that my dad was not coming back till I turned 13.
Mm, yeah.
Did you feel that way? What was your journey?
I didn't have the words to articulate it like that, but I always had this, like, I remember having a dream once of like my dad was going to come back and I was going to hug him. So there was this like unconscious part that like really was still asking like, is this real? Or like, is he out there somewhere and like gonna show up somehow magically? So yeah, that was part of my journey. And I was also already introverted from as I went on that path to discover more about myself, stuff that happened earlier that like I just went internal with it all too. So that didn't help.
Well, what was the cause of that?
Yeah, I mean it's funny because it started in college. I went to go do a hypnosis session. And during that session, she had me lay down and go internal and lead me through prompts. And then the memory that came up was around age 3 or 4. My parents were in the middle of getting a divorce and they were screaming at each other, like top their lungs. And I screamed back at them to get them to stop. Because I just wanted them to freaking 3-year-old. I just
Yeah.
wanted peace and love and support and didn't like them like fighting with each other and that did absolutely nothing. So like it was this memory of me like running off behind the couch and I was like almost like kicking and screaming like on the ground which quick side note is crazy. I saw my now she's 7 years old. She like did this in real life when she was 2. So like I saw it play out through my daughter. But that instilled a sense of powerlessness and voicelessness, right? And then I didn't realize how much it just made me like feel abandoned from my father and like kind of like knocked a peg off the stool and then I just kind of shut down and like all right, I just got to deal with things internally.
Yeah, that's wild. You know, something that my husband has similar commands like that, where he's because it's interesting. We all have childhood trauma, every single one. But I work with a state of hypnosis, right? And it's interesting that a lot of kids, and we're talking the first time out the gate, our first session, they have something similar like that happen. They take me to a scene where there's a fight between their parents.
Yeah.
And it's very significant, right? And but it's interesting how often that happens in the first session. So when you said that, I was like, how interesting,
Yeah.
because I don't get a lot of men.
Mm.
I work mostly with women. So, but my husband has a lot of similar commands where he learned how to just shut his mouth and just go internal. So tell me how this played out throughout your life and how you work with that now.
Yeah, and I want to double click on that though because this is part, doing work with people is we have the language now when we're grown up, but we don't have that when we're young, right? We just have the feeling state. So hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like a big disruption like that with your family, like your pillars of support, like is going to cause those feelings. And then we get older, we're like, yeah, we were fine. Like they got along, they argued sometimes. Everybody argues. Like we could rationalize it, right, in our
Yeah.
mind. But that's not the somatic state internally. especially at that age.
Yeah. So
So,
how did you deal with that?
well, by going internally,
No,
uh,
meaning, okay. When I was, so grew up with a lot of trauma and then sort of tucked it away. And it wasn't until I became a wife and then specifically a mom and all my triggers started sounding
yeah,
off. And I was not okay. And I had to I had to find some way of fixing it because I was gonna take my life if I didn't
yeah.
find a solution. So what was that for you? I find that most of us have some sort of a moment where they're like, I can't live like this anymore. Did you have like that catalyst or what was your process?
There was a couple catalysts. It was kind of like a slow build up and then kind of plateau and then another breakthrough. So first with the slow build up, my dark night of the soul was really in college. Being somebody that's really introverted, and then I was going to Art Center College of Design, and I was living alone for the first year. And this school is like the medical school of design. So it's like, you pull all-nighters and work really hard. And the years leading up to that, like my battle's always been the internal force of resistance. And I got this tattoo on my sleeve, and it was originally going to be the Saint Michael tattoo. So the Saint Michael he has the sword and he's about to kill the demon underneath him. And I'm artistic, so I got to put my own magic on it. So I drew a knight and I put my initials on the shield, and underneath was Freddy Cougar because I named what this voice in my head of Freddy Cougar. It just felt like this like voice or force that would like bring in negative thoughts. It would steal my presence. Like it just felt like there was just a battle in my mind constantly with this negative force.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like mustered up the courage during that time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this tattooed. This is my declaration. Like same thing. I think part of that losing somebody at a young age for me, it makes you realize like what makes life worth living. And then there was part of me that was like, if I died, like that's okay. Like fuck it. Like just like life can be so hard sometimes to the point of overwhelming that it would just be easier. It would just be easier if we
Yeah,
weren't.
for sure.
And went to go get that tattoo in Pasadena, showed the tattoo artist. I was all like, all right, I made it in there. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get this tattooed on my skin forever, my declaration. And the tattoo artist looks at it. He looks at my forearm. He looks at it again. He's like, you know what? It's not gonna look that good. Like the way the, the arm is up with the sword, it's gonna be curved. Like actually it'll look so bad, like I won't even put my name behind it. So I was like, damn, all right.
Shut you down. I mean, I would appreciate that because I would rather know, hey, this is gonna kind of look dumb. Can we
Yeah.
pick a different spot? Did he suggest putting it in a different spot?
I think he gave us couple suggestions, and I'm with you there. Being a designer, I want it to look good. And I went home and meditated, and what came up is the tattoo I have now, which didn't make complete sense at the time. So it's sideways, but for those listening, it's a knight, the same knight, but he's holding on to the top of the sword in the ground, and the shield's on the ground. And instead of the demon or Freddy Krueger, it's a dragon that's 10 to 100 times bigger than the knight. And what I later learned is that's the first phase of alchemy, and it's represented by the black dragon. So I'll just kind of park that because that's later in the story that I realized that. But that was the dark night of the soul. And I know for me, like that like mental toll of being isolated. I remember like, being huddled up in a room trying to get homework done and like just like despair. It's just like despair if you know it, if you've been in the dark night of the soul. But what got me to start to get through that moment, a big part was I really got into this was like back in 2012, 2014. Like I started listening to Joe Rogan then, and all of their like alternative health stuff. So I started like eating paleo and like physical fitness. And that gave me the momentum to clear up more of that mental space and then a little bit of meditation, and spirituality mixed in there. So there was kind of like these building blocks that like slowly created the momentum. to the point of where I was like, okay, like I'm good now. Like I'm coasting. I'm ready. Like I want to, graduate and build business or whatever else. But the second time around was 2019. So same thing, a year in having a kid. And I did the Fit for Service Mastermind with Aubrey Marcus. And that was this, physical optimization, mental, emotional, spiritual. But what really cracked me open was a breathwork journey. And have you experienced a breathwork journey?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I know Aubrey's really into he does a lot of like this wasn't a psychedelic journey because he does a lot of psychedelics and whatnot.
Yeah, that came later, but this was just breathwork.
Okay. Yeah.
My
Oh,
first
yeah.
just breathwork.
It's so powerful.
It is. And this was my first time, so the music was going. There was Anahata Nanda leading it in Sedona. And we're going through it and about halfway, and she's like leading us, and there's big like music going, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. Like I feel all right. I wasn't really going anywhere. But then halfway through, they had some of the coaches like Aubrey or Kyle Kingsbury as facilitators. Somebody just put a big ass man hand on my hand in the middle of it, and it just sent me straight to the night where I lost my father. Like I
Mm,
remember being on the bunk bed and that like, why is this real? This can't be real. What's happening? That reality shattering moment. And like later that afternoon, it cracks me open. Like my good friend Chris Hager saw me. He's like, "How was that?" And he just looked at me and like, like tears and like barely there. He was like, "Oh."
that little boy was in there with all that pain sitting inside of him for all this time.
1000%.
Yeah.
And like I was so cracked open after that, and that was the visual that came up after. It was like a walnut. No, I grew up on a walnut farm, so that's why it stood out to me. But like all those emotions, right, they got pushed away, like hardened like a shell, and that breath work cracked it open and just showcased like all that grief I didn't deal with
Yeah.
just came up.
Oof. It's so delicious because, men are interesting. I've only worked with a few men but the few that I have, it's like you guys have been so programmed out of feeling your emotions that it's like when I take you to actually plug your shit into the outlet, like you're so disconnected. All I want you to do is plug in. You get even close and you're like, no, right? Like it won't go in.
Yeah.
And so for me, it can be very frustrating because with women, it's a lot quicker. We're much more connected, but you guys have been literally programmed out of feeling your emotions. You think pain is a bad thing. You believe it's a bad thing to connect to it, so you just don't. And that's why I love that men are like you are doing the work. You're you're plugging the thing in and you're letting yourself feel it. And that's what it takes to heal it. You
Yeah.
have to fucking feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was such a big moment for me to realize that you have to have space to feel those feelings. That's like on like letting it through your system. And then after that, what did I learn from that? And that's when you start to get the gold from those
Mhm.
experiences. But to double click, absolutely. Like that's been my path. Like I was so disconnected. I was like a stoic, almost robot, like emotionless to some regard and quiet. And if I was trying to do this, talk like this 5+ years ago, I'd be sweating. I'd be, barely doing anything, losing track of what I'm talking about. But it was disconnection from my emotions, disconnection from like a true connection to God or source or whatever higher energy being, and just disconnection, like even from internal like real awareness and then as we know, like if you're disconnected internally with yourself, like you're not going to be able to truly connect uh externally on another level.
Hey, Tammy Cox here. If you're ready to stop repeating painful relationship patterns and finally create the love and connection you deserve, there is a way. Click the link in the description to schedule a call with me and let's talk about what's really holding you back. Now, back to the show. Absolutely. Yeah, it was like so for my husband and I, we've been together 19 years and we had a very toxic relationship for many of those years. But I explained it to people like I had my hand up, like don't come any closer. It's like I had a wall, all I could not let him love me.
Yeah.
And here he was standing with all this love for me and I could not let it in, right? But there was a lot of abuse in my childhood as well, and my dad died of AIDS, so there's a lot of shit there. But I'm wondering because when people say alchemy, I it can be a very confusing thing to understand. Do you think you can really explain alchemy in a way that anyone could understand it, a third grader could understand it?
The art of transformation,
Yeah,
taking a lesser item into its greatest potential is what alchemy is all about. This is transmutation.
yeah, I love that. Simple and beautiful. And tell me how you really felt like you did that by allowing that little boy to feel his emotions.
Yeah, it was through that process that I gave space to feel fully and then asked, what did I learn from this? And that was like a realization for me that it sent me on the path. Like, what makes life worth living? And then I've been unconsciously by doing my own, inner work journey, what makes life so painful? And that's when it really started to shift. And this idea, just intuition came up, soul gold. Like, oh wow, that's my soul gold, that I can have a beautiful meal with friends, and that could be the greatest thing ever. Something as simple as that, because like I've touched the polarity of pain of losing somebody dearly. And that's the opportunity through any trauma or painful or challenging experience. It's like the depth of the pain, you have the potential other side of the polarity available to you if you're willing to go through that journey.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And I explain it like this, like because I came from the religious world. So, as I moved out of the religious world about 6 years ago, it was a process, but I see heaven and hell very differently. I believe that it's a mental construct because we're living in this mental construct, right? And so heaven and hell is not something that comes later. It's something that is now. And I know because I lived hell on earth for many, many years. Hell, like, and now I feel like I'm so high, right? Much of the time. Sometimes I dip down. It's all about the ride. Pain is beautiful, right? I've been down here, I've been up here, and I've been everywhere in between. That's the beauty of life. If life was this, no highs, what would the fucking point be? What would the point be of coming here and being like,
Yeah. In my perspective, that's like when you're a soul, an energetic being in the sea of energy, divine energy of creation, that's what it is like. It's like steady line bliss. So it's like we came here for the pain, for the obstacles to get back to that state, but a building block of this reality is pain.
yes,
And it's been my path to like really acknowledge like the pain creates the beauty.
yes,
And if you can just accept that, then it's like, fuck, okay, like this pain serves me in some way. It can be a portal to something much greater than I even realize right now if I'm willing to go through it. But we also have our programming and we also have our biology that's like, no pain, no pain. I don't want to suffer, I want to survive.
but that's why someone comes to someone like us and we tell them, no, that's actually a gift. That's actually your superhuman. Like we get to share with them our perspective because everything is just perception, right? It is literally, this is my prescription filled with all of my beliefs, all of my traumas, all my shit, right? Right here in this prescription. And I'm seeing through the lens of that, right? So at any point in time, I could take my prescription off. Here, give me a new prescription. And this one could be a totally different outlook. So when we heal the trauma, right? We're literally taking the emotional tag off the event and then we see it from this brand new place.
Yeah,
This neutral spot. Only then can we see the wisdom.
yeah,
Once that neutral pain tag is taken off. I mean, once you neutralize that pain tag. So it's like, it's just perception.
Yeah.
So now the way I see death is beautiful. Would I really want to stay in this meat suit, this particular meat suit for all of time? No,
Yeah.
no, I don't. 100 years max, right? So if we see the larger part of who we are and we recognize we're not just this,
Yeah.
we've got the spirits, the soul, we have so many other aspects to what we are. But if we only see ourselves as this, I can understand how you could get really wrapped up in the pain.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I have a sticker and it's sunglasses that say Soul Gold. So literally just exactly what you're saying is we can take this soul-centric view on life, which is like the bigger perspective. And my own interpretation, if we're just beings of love, like the energy of creation, which I just say a fancy word for love, like, oh wow, this to like expand the view, like, oh wow, there's all something to be learned here. And the soul gold is the lessons, the growth, and the experiences. This is the only thing you're going to take with you in this lifetime, right? And then you get to see like this challenge, this trauma, whatever I'm going through, there's something on the other side for me to learn and grow from that when I'm on my deathbed, I'm gonna be like, fuck yeah. Like I fucking that limited perspective I had of who I was, I shattered that.
Yeah,
And I got back to my inherent divinity state of limitless potential and expression, like creative expression.
it's beautiful. Yeah. So what I'm curious, where were you at? I'm sure you went through this journey with your wife, right? She got to watch you transform before her eyes. What did that look like?
Well, it's funny you sharing your experience. My wife also had her own difficult childhood, and was getting like um, raised in a very Christian, similar to you, but she was getting like rapture stuff like drilled in her at age 6.
Oh yeah. Oh
She
yeah.
knows that.
I that fear-based program was so deep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like hell on earth, right? And hell's coming. More hell is coming if there's not enough already. Um, so. It's funny because she grew up in an environment where you just hash things out immediately. And then I go internally. So it's been this push and pull where hindsight, we could realize how toxic our relationship was in the beginning. But during, we were just so unconscious, we're just in it and just like going through the motions. So it's kind of been a process, a little bit of the masculine feminine pull where I'll make a leap. I'll throw us into a container like the Aubrey Marcus Fit for Service mastermind back in 2019 when they didn't know what they were doing and I didn't really know what I was signing up for. But I really tested like the boundaries of our relationship, which like open relationship was a theme in that mastermind. It wasn't something I was interested in by any means. But of course, if she's my wife, she's going to be like, you're obviously interested in it because you're in this community of people. So it's been a path of me taking this leap, and sometimes I kind of grab her and throw her in the fire. She also likes fire. And then we get forged by getting out the other side of the fire. And there's other instances of me doing this with us.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so I'm a little bit kind of give her the boot, and then she catches right up after I take that first step.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I started on my healing journey, you know, when one disturbs the program, right? All of a sudden I'm like, no, I'm making this change and I don't know where you're going, but I'm going here. And I was at that place where I did not want to live what we had been living for so many years. And I said, I'm going to heal. I'm going to get myself happy. And I am not attached to whether our relationship withstands that. Basically, I'm not staying small for this.
Yeah.
And at first, it scared him because I was switching up the program on him. But then once he started to see me change, and once he started to see me grow and just feel peaceful and feel less attached to anything he was doing, I was just sort of like, you do you. He was like, I think I need a piece of that. Like, I want that piece too. And so he ended up joining me. And I always tell that to my clients, like sometimes they'll want to join you and sometimes they just won't because they don't want to heal. And you have to be unattached on your healing journey to whether or not your spouse or everyone else in your life wants to join you. You really have to be unapologetic, because if you have any sort of like, oh, I'll stay small just to make anyone else feel better, you're just not going to allow yourself to grow to the potential. So I love that you threw your wife in the fire, because it was really to her benefit too.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to go through some hard things, but you're going to come out better regardless. I don't care. You are going to come out better. So she obviously decided to go on this journey with you, and she got to be a witness of who you've become. What would she say about what would she say about all of it?
Yeah, it was through the process of seeing me start to transform that she was like, okay, there's something to these things, and like tag along. And I want to share too, like really highlight, like you're choosing to live in an unconscious prison of your own making of hell if you feel like there's a way out and you don't take the leap. And another metaphor that's made me come up before, it's like the roots got to sink into the soil, right? The dark fertilizer, the shadow work to grow that tree that can get the light. So for
Yes.
her, yeah, now it's been a process of, and this is a growth. Like anybody in relationship while doing healing, there's going to be a growth gap,
Oh
and
yeah.
that is absolutely terrifying, subconsciously often. Because the other person's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm comfortable. My survival needs, one of them is to be in control. So I want to know what's going on. If you have that, we all have that need in some regard, right? So like, I don't want you to like be the crab climbing out of this pot of our current life, because what does that mean? You're going to shatter my reality. So anybody in that place, like grace and courage, right? A lot of the things once you get into healing is like dichotomies. So like have the grace for that partner, because like I did put us through the fire. We could have crashed and burned. Because 2019, that was right before then I opened my own business. It was always my dream to open a store. I opened a retail store, signed the lease January 2020. We had a 2-year-old at the time, and then another baby in the oven for June 2020. So I like stacked everything at once, which we were either going to team up and like get through the fire together, even if there was some gaps. There was definitely gaps during the journey, or it was going to crash and burn. And it does take somebody to be courageous, either person in the container of the relationship to take that step to, because sometimes people don't even know, often the people who aren't ready for that kind of transformation don't know what's on the other side. Like if
It's
you tell them the
scary.
grass is greener, they'll be like, "Yeah, okay, life is fine. Like I enjoy what I do. Like life is good. Why would you want it to like? Why do you want to go through that pain and learn all those things and feel those hard emotions and get to the other side?" But that is the most powerful thing through any transformative experience. The more you can let go of external validation or expectations and simply embody the insights and lessons and healing that you receive, that's when people notice like an energetic shift and they don't have words for it, but eventually it'll be like, you're different. And it's often the people that are closest to us that it's going to take the longest time for them to see that. Because exactly your point, they got their lens. They got a certain lens of who they think you are, and that's not going to change easily. So it takes gathering of evidence over time for them to be like, oh, wow, okay, there is something to this. And then that's when they just open the door a little bit. And then you invite them in, and then they have their experience, and then it kind of unravels from there.
Yeah. So well put. Um, what's interesting to me is you, like me, we went through our healing journey with our spouses, our partners. But what I'm noticing the theme is that that's not the norm. So a lot of the women in my world, the coaches, the healers, the leaders, they have gone through their healing journey. They've gotten out of their toxic relationships. And here they are standing in this place of like, well, I'm not going to take just anything that comes along. They're lonely. They want that partnership, but they're not going to take just anyone. And here, most men are not like you. They have not started on their journey. You're a small percent, but I'm seeing these women just like rising up. getting, clearing out their shit, clearing out their shadows, and they're waiting on the men to start, picking up the momentum so they can have partners for this. But I just find it interesting that we are kind of some of the few that have done this within our partnerships because we had a partner that on some level, and I know that gap you're talking about, but on some level, they wanted the same thing we did.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Are you seeing the same theme with a lot of people in the healing world
Yeah, I mean,
going
I
through
think
this
it's bigger
place?
collective United States than that, right? Like independence and like there's so much like commitment is something that's not valued like it used to be because our pleasure unconscious tendencies are being taken over by technology. That was my own perspective, to some regard. And like collective society is like it's easier to take the easy route, and commitment's fucking hard. And it's hard to commit to somebody and with that like go through that growth together because you don't know about the other side, but um just from like a bigger picture view, like it's people are staying single longer is just what I'm noticing. Like a lot of like we were the black sheep in the friend group because a lot of my wife's friends like they were either single or maybe just getting married and like we were having babies and like starting the deep work process.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm seeing the same, and it is an interesting play of is this person, if you're in partnership, like is this person ready to go on the journey with me, or is this something I got to heal within myself and hopefully attract that partner who's on the same level?
Yeah. Sorry, you see my cat.
Yeah, I love it. She's got something to say about this.
When the energy gets intense, my cats come around. They start hopping on the screen. I had him hop on the screen the other day because the energy was so like electric. Um, yeah, I'm just finding it to be a very interesting theme. I think you're right. Even though it's challenging to be in a long-term partnership, but it's also challenging to be single. Not one of them is more challenging than the other, but the perception of the masses is that it's really challenging to be in a monogamous long term partnership. And I get why, because it's so intimate. You have to let that person in to the most intimate parts of you, the things that you want to hide from everyone else, that they have to see. If you want the most beautiful relationship with your partner is really vulnerable. So I
Yeah,
get why that feels more challenging than to have multiple partnerships and have them come in and out, but you're just not going to get very deep with that, right? It's
yeah,
going to be pretty surface level. It's going to take a lot of time for you to get on that level where they understand you, like, yes, I've had to be very vulnerable, real, raw, and honest with my husband, but he knows me better than anyone else and he can understand me more than anyone else. That's valuable too.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And
It,
so it's kind of like the pick your hard kind of thing. It's like, yes, it could be challenging to be in a partnership, but what it offers long term in your healing journey is just, there's nothing else like it.
yeah, yeah. That's you know, the metaphor of two jagged rocks put into a bag of sacred commitment, shaken up until they become polished like gems.
Oh God, that sounds wretched. Oh God, what have we
But
gotten ourselves into?
but to your point, like I'm always focused on like what's the highest of the highest path, right? So I like I've done a program with a couple called the Road to Sacred Union. And to use my mentor Jamie Wheel's terminology, it's like it's the bliss fuck crucifixion, sacred
Yes.
union. Because it is the you have to be as raw and real and but with that the polarity again is that you can touch the highest highs of love and ecstasis through that committed partnership. Like you just won't get the level of depth if you go the route of single and having different partners throughout the time. And this is to say there's absolutely no right or wrong. It's like what do you want to experience and grow and like lean into in this lifetime? But it's not an easy path, but it does give a launch pad for like the expansion of your heart beyond what you think is capable. And then it's just like having kids, like it shatters the heart and then expands it to a new level. But that potential is available in sacred, committed partnership.
Yeah, and you know what I think what else needs to sort of be debunked because these women are like, oh, well, they're just not matching my level. But I think they're discounting the fact that when you come into whoever you're attracting is actually on your level. Like they're reflecting back to your own beliefs. So you can work with that, right? It's like me saying, oh, my husband, oh, I'm so above him. Oh, he's so below me. I just like, could you imagine that? Instead of being like, no, he's a literal reflection of me. So it's about getting curious about what's coming up in me from this interaction instead of this blame game of, oh, they did this to me and she did that to me and like the victim thing. So I think that like sort of polarities within that relationship. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Am I
I
making
mean,
sense?
and like a golden nugget for anybody who is single. Like I'm doing the work. I'm loving myself. I'm like doing it and I want to attract that partner. Well, like stay patient because the law of frequency. Like your frequency will attract a similar frequency. Like it's been my case with business, with friends, with like everything. Like the people will just show up out of nowhere.
Right.
But sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Like by the time you surrender, like, ah, fuck it, it's not gonna happen, then it's like, boom, there it is.
That's what it takes, surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. Surrender. And with that, like we also have to acknowledge the energy, the polarity of the masculine and feminine, and you get in partnership, and usually somebody's polarized in one and someone's polarized in the other. Like those energies, as especially as you start doing the work within yourself to get back to more of your divine inherent like worthiness, like there's a polarity there. So there's going to be things with men about women like, oh, you're so emotional and I just can't solve your problems. Like some of that shit ain't going to change. Same with your man. And you have to learn how to work with these polarity of energies, but that's what creates the sparks and the flame.
Mhm.
So you think that some other partner is going to be more enlightened or whatever, but we don't realize we're dealing with collective energy, like a collective archetype that's bigger than us. And then that's where when you can learn to work with that, you're like, oh shit, no matter who I partner with for the rest of my life, like I'm going to be dealing with the same shit.
Yep. Yep. I think you just hit the nail on the head. No matter who I choose, I'm going to be working on the shit,
Yeah. The
right?
shit ain't gonna
Because
stop.
I mean, it's so like my husband and I, we have very similar upbringings where our dads both died when we were young. Our moms remarried very quickly to men that they didn't feel real good to us for our upbringing. Like we have very similar traumas. But the way that our attachment styles are completely opposite. And when we're triggered, we respond completely opposite. My husband's like you, gets small, quiet, runs away. I get loud and like a little 2-year-old tantrum, become loud and scary and stuff. And so we have these opposites. So instead of being like, oh, I'm looking for something completely different, it's like, no, this is showing up for me, for me to work on something within me. And as I start working on these things, instead of judging him or even judging myself, I just get to get curious and look at it and be like, okay, what is coming up for me? What is this telling me? Just like you were talking about with that gold piece.
Yeah.
When we pull the negative emotion off the event, we can now see the gold, which is that neutral place of like, but what's the wisdom in it all?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, really, the other person is not the problem. In fact, when I first start working with her, what I tell her is, I'm going to need you to put on your blinders. I'm going to need you to stop looking outside of you at anyone else, specifically your husband, because she swears it's him. She swears it's him. I'm going to need you to put on your blinders, honey, because we're going within you. We're going to
Yeah.
go excavate within you. And we're not looking at anyone or anything external for a little bit because everything is from the inside out and people just can't see it until they start their journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you realize life is just the mirror, and it's like, okay, every thought I'm having about somebody else that I'm projecting onto them is me saying what I want within myself. And to your point, it's like partnership is like two circles coming together to merge to one. And even though like we call it fight language, right? Like what's your fight language? We all know the love
I've
language
never
term.
heard of that.
So fight language is when you get in a fight, like how do you process that? Just like you explained, like my wife is like, we got to talk this through. I process through verbalizing, and I'm like, no, I shut down. I don't even know what I'm feeling yet. I can't even talk this through because I don't know what's going on. Like, give me space. So for us, it's been a process of verbalizing, like me saying, I need to come back to this in 24 hours. And then we can process by using our gifts together. And the beautiful thing in partnership, which we don't realize when we're caught in the shit, is that we're balancing each other out. If you did pick somebody who's on that opposite end of the polarity. So as you become a single circle, like two circles merging into one, like you guys are finding the sweet spot by coming together in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
Bible refers to that as like oneness. When the two become one flesh, it's that merging together of your energies.
Yeah.
And then also speaking to the being equally yoked. If you're bound to a person either in marriage or business or whatever, and you're not going towards the same goals, then it's going to be a very uncomfortable journey. You're going this way there, but you're on the same. It's like, yeah, that's when marriage is really difficult. And I think that's the issue that some of them come when they start out on the journey is their husband doesn't want to go there. And so they have to either make a decision to stay small and stay in union or to break off of that and to let themselves rise up. And this happens not even just in marriage. I've seen this in, interfamily relationships, family of origin, wherever you're tied to or your energy is bound to, that can really keep you stagnant because you don't want to get big, the whole tribal thing. I
Yeah.
can't get bigger than my tribe. I got to stay small so I can stay in union thing. Because it is a scary thing when you grow. You're going
Yeah.
outside of you're going outside of your safety.
Yeah. And to whoever is listening to this, like this is a sign, like this is sparking something, right? You attracted this into your reality, this conversation, to spark something within you. So again, like the highest path here, because this is part of the process. You get to a point where you outgrow some relationships, but the real work is how can you become a being that can come back to those relationships, like grounded in your power and love, that you can just exude that and just be there, like
Yes.
no expectations. And like, even if you can do that with a family member, because a lot of the Instagram reels nowadays are like, just cut those bitches out or cut the family out, like healing journey, hashtag. And some of that, yeah, there's a growth phase where you have to create space. But the real work is being able to come back to those people. And even though it's going to be the hardest with your family and your parents and maybe your partner, but like that's the real work, is to just get to a place of like fierce love that even as they try to deploy your own triggers onto yourself, you can like get to such a place of growth that like, okay, and maybe it does bring up some stuff in you, but you have the tools to get back to center. And like that's what creates the invitation for others to like, oh wow, that person is different. Like they're on a different frequency than me. And that's like the invitation for people to join you in the work.
Absolutely. That was a big part of my journey too. I moved out to Arizona because that space really helped me to grow.
Yeah.
And then as I would come back and visit San Diego, because I only live 6 hours away, I go back. In the beginning, I got
Uh-huh.
trigger, right? But then each time I go back, it's a little less and a little less. But it was kind of just letting me know what still needs to be worked through, right?
Yeah.
But it's still like I'm getting ready to go back in July, and I'm like, okay, what's going to be coming up? I'm preparing myself. Now I get curious. I don't beat myself up when I get triggered. I get really curious. Ooh, what's next for me to work on? But there is that place in the journey. I think the first level when people are on their healing journey is it's easier for them to be more solo. I think that's the dark night of the soul, is because you have left the old identity. You've already decided that's not who you choose to be in the future, but you haven't embodied the new yet.
Yeah.
And so here you are in this very empty place that you're like, okay, I have no identity, right? And it feels awful. And then it takes some time. You go to phase two, and that's where, you're choosing your frequency on purpose. You're doing the inner work. And then, like you said, three is where you can be the change no matter where you go or what you do. You can hold that light no matter what. And I think that third piece is a really big one, but I think most people on their journey, we're still in number two.
Yeah.
And we're maybe shifting somewhat into number three, but most people cannot be fully embodied, just radically in their power 24/7. I don't think that's what human being is, right?
Yeah.
We've come here for the experience. Yes, we're healing the lineage. Yes, we're healing the DNA. And I don't know if that could be fully done in this generation at this time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another rabbit hole. But I want to highlight that you described the three phases of alchemy, which I literally have tattooed on my sleeve. Like the first phase is the black phase, Negrito, and then there's the white phase. So the black phase, exactly what you're saying, dark night of the soul. You feel like you're alone. You're in the dark forest all by yourself. White phase is when you get the light at the end of the tunnel. And then you start to, this is like the part of like opening up your heart. Oh, wow, I got these different parts within me with these different needs. And there's the potential of my higher self. I'm starting to get a glimpse and a taste of what that is. And like connect with others in a different way and see there's more opportunities to open my heart bigger and bigger to all the resistance and parts and projections. And then you go through into the red phase, and that's like the hardening. It's when the old parts of you have died off and you're reborn, ready to be in sacred union with source and higher power. And then that gives birth to the philosopher's stone or the philosopher's child. And from that place, then you're just walking as a crystallized being. But it's my own interpretation that it's like an upward spiral of becoming and a internal spiral into your depths. So there's always more layers to explore.
Yes, I love that. Because I think too, for a lot of people on their healing journey, there's this sort of pride piece that I see a lot of the times where they're like, oh, I am enlightened. I have reached those levels. I have, oh my God. Like the last podcast I did, beautiful lady, she was like, yeah, I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm living in 5D. I'm living in 5D." And I'm like, I would laugh if someone said that to me. I live in 5D. I wouldn't see you then. Like, hello, you're not an angel, a full angelic being, because I wouldn't be seeing you in the 3D.
Mhm.
So I just think and it's just kind of one of those things. And I've seen it in religion. I see it in all sorts of different people that like, oh, I am up here now. Right. And that's kind of what I was saying to you earlier, where, they think, okay, well, I can't be with any of these men. They're too low for me. Their frequency is too low. And it's like, I think you, not that you think too highly of yourself, because we should all think highly of ourselves, but then we also have the human side to us.
Absolutely.
And I believe we're always doing the spiral thing up and down all the time. And there's certainly people that spiral higher than others, but we're all spiraling. And there's
Yeah.
all sorts of different parts of ourself, right? But I think that these people who think they just stay in these high levels all the time are really deceiving themselves. And that's why I say that that third part, what would you call it, of alchemy? That third,
Red phase.
yeah, is like it's ongoing, I think. Because if once you're finished, once your work here has completed, you're going to be moving out of that meat suit. Like you're not staying in it. So you obviously come in and go out for a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're on that level, if we're all in the Hermetic philosophy of one mind, we're all consciousness, then you realize it's only we. So there is no
Exactly.
hierarchy. Like we're all in the sea of energy. And there's just a lot of trap doors on the path. And that's part of the path, and like some perspectives is like there's the I'm gonna butcher the name, but the Artemin, which is like we tend to think of like matter, and then there's Lucifer, which is of the light, not as in Satan, and then the heart, which is like the grounded spot in between.
Yeah.
And Lucifer is like, I am a lightened being, I am all light. It's all about just be spiritual woo-woo. And then the Artemon is like everything's physical, like just technology and money and like physical things, and there's no thing, but it's back in the heart. Like how much can you embody? It's almost like being on the cross, right? How much like divinity can you embody in consciousness while being in human form? Is
Yeah.
the game is the alchemical path.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautifully said. It's like the mergence, the
Yeah,
whole reason for the Trinity,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's that neutral place in between. You are physical and you're non-physical, but to embody that, to come to the 0 point where you're fully both,
yeah,
which we always are, but that conscious awareness that we are both.
yeah.
I don't know. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Love,
that's
I
the
love the way you said that.
and that's like why we do like altered state of consciousness modalities as example or healing retreats, right? Maybe you're curious about breath work or psychedelics, and you don't go have these experiences to just have a peak experience. Like the alchemist point of view is you have that experience. I use the metaphor you're climbing a peak state of consciousness. So you're climbing up the peak, right? And you're going on a journey. And let's just use like a medicine retreat. And that could be breath work, psychedelics, whatever, healing, like yoga retreat, anything. So you signed up for one, let's say in Costa Rica, because they love to do retreats in Costa Rica.
You do?
Like, I've done some, but just people in my circle that
Oh,
I know, and like maybe opening a therapeutic center. So maybe you're going to my future therapeutic center in Costa Rica. You get down there, and as you create this space in your ordinary life, it's like climbing up the mountain where you get above, like you're creating a gap to see above the tree line of your ordinary life. And then you keep climbing, and what happens? You get above the clouds. And this is like the medicine journey, for example, or a breathwork journey. And
mm-hmm.
like you feel that you see the sun and you feel the rays of love, of catharsis, of healing or connection to higher power or insights, like your vision for the future or your higher self potential. And it's about grabbing that spark, that light, so that you can show up more fully integrated and embodied on Monday morning. Not to just climb the mountain and try to be in that enlightened, everything is bliss all the time place. But you're grabbing that, and it's just like the other metaphor I give is in medieval times, they would carry a metal box with them. And they'd put little tinder in there because they have this little ember that they always kept alive. So it's like, how do you bring that back to the mundane? You're bringing the sacred into the mundane by potentially creating these peak experiences on demand. And like that's alchemy, like being able to integrate all that magic, all that divinity in every moment.
And the integration is so important. I find I had a friend who did a psychedelics journey, and when she came back and she was like, we need to figure out a way that people can learn how to embody this after they get back because they're on this massive high, what they call the mountaintop experience, right? And then integrating that back into life can be so challenging, almost like a mini dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, all parts of it are necessary, but some people, that's when they revert back to their old stuff because they're like, the integration process is just too strong for them,
Yeah.
and
You got
that's
too much
where,
light. Too
yeah,
much light. Saw too many shadows, and you're like, whoa, okay, I don't know how to bring this, I don't know how to bring this back.
yeah.
So anybody who goes to that experience, I teach space, senses, and transmutation. So bigger picture view, I call it integration, embodiment, crystallization. And when you're in the integration, once again, space, senses, transmutation. So if you went through a big peak experience, or even just working with a coach or facilitator, right? And it was a really deep session, and you're like, whoa, that really cracked me open. like create a little bit of space in your week. Could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. Like if it was a peak experience where you went somewhere and there was certain music playing or smells or environment, like utilize that to put you back into that state. And then transmutation, which is write about it, color it, make art, express it, like create voice notes, like get it in your body and out in some form. Move your body like in some
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like that's how you start to get it embodied, but it takes creating space. And then a key thing too is like some form of community or people that if you have a coach, then you have somebody who's going to check in on you, right? But somebody to help you along the journey too. That's a really big thing for integration.
I love that. Gosh, this went by so fast. David, we didn't even talk about everything I want to, but that's okay. There's always there's always another one right around the corner. In fact, when I saw that you were in San Diego, I'm like, I'm going to be in San Diego next month. It would be really cool because I would love to do in-person podcast sessions. That would just be killer. But I was like, maybe I could see it in the forecast sometime in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you talked about Costa Rica. I'm like, I want to move to Costa Rica so bad.
Yeah. One of my good soul brothers who we had a men's group with, he's living there now. He's a couple years in, so
Oh, I
uh,
might need to get his information from you so I
he
can
would be
talk
a
to him.
great person to have on here as well. He can talk a lot about men.
Ooh, yes,
Yes.
please. Okay, so tell everyone where they can find you. Where can they
Yeah.
find you? And we didn't even get to talk about your book, but tell them where they could find you in your book.
Yeah, and like what I've talked about, peak states of consciousness, I've all put this into a fictional a book that was based off an in-person intensive that I created from trauma to soul gold. So that the book is The Alchemical Journey, The Ultimate Quest for Inner Gold. You can also find that at www.goldenlife.com. And then my personal website, which is going to be updated soon, maybe by the time this is live, is davidggilbert.com because I love to not only transmute the inner lead into gold, but also like what is that vision that's so big that it's like lead, it's so heavy. I help high performers create that as well.
Beautiful. Well, you're just a freaking badass, that's for sure. And I'm so grateful for you coming on here, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're bringing into this world because it's awesome.
No.
Especially it for men. They need you.
Well, put the mirror back. The frequency attracts like, right? And for the listeners too, like just something to share because we talked about this journey is about realizing there's a mirror, that it's all your unconscious parts, and then the awakening is to realize there's a mirror behind you, and then it gets infinite and beautiful and boundless. So keep
Yes.
on the path because the gold on the other side is more than you can imagine.
Indeed. Indeed. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing.